So hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. So we have been discussing important topics for Polity mains examination. Yesterday we have discussed about Indian Parliament, parliamentary privileges, role of President in the Parliament, and also the role of Governor as an internal part of the state legislature. And today also we are going to discuss some important topics such as anti-defection law and what are the major provisions of anti-defection law, what are the criticism of anti-defection law, and other important topics as well. Now when we discuss about this anti-defection law, you might have seen a lot of questions on anti-defection law because it is a constitutional amendment that has been brought in to prevent or arrest horse trading and corruption in politics. And in fact the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, so that was passed in the year 1985. So during the Rajiv Gandhi government, the anti-defection law through 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act has brought into effect, and in fact this anti-defection law has been included in the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, right? So it has been included in the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And in fact anti-defection law is a law which has mentioned certain grounds based on which the legislators are actually disqualified on the grounds of defection, right? So we'll understand what are those grounds based on which the members of the legislature can actually be disqualified by the speaker. And in fact the main objective or the main purpose of anti-defection law is to combat the evil of political defections. So in order to counter the evil of political defections, this anti-defection law has been passed. Now we will understand what are the major provisions that are included in the anti-defection law. And in fact any member of a political party can be disqualified being a member of state legislature or the parliament on certain grounds which are mentioned in the anti-defection law. Now what are those grounds? So firstly we'll understand that imagine that person A is a member of a particular political party, right? So he belongs to a particular political party Y. Now member A won elections, seat given by political party Y, right? So he won elections with a symbol of the political party Y, but after his election if member A voluntarily gives up his membership of this particular political party Y, so in that case this member A could be disqualified under the anti-defection law, right? So he will be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So that means person A will no longer be a member of either state legislature or the parliament, right? So this is how anti-defection law actually works. And it is not just with respect to giving up the membership of the political party by member A, but it also applies. So if member A abstains from the voting in such house contrary to any direction issued by the political party, for example member A belonged to political party Y, and whenever any key bill came for the voting, political party Y issues a whip. Whip is an order or a dictum issued by the political party to the respective members, and members should uphold this dictum or whip of that political party. So in case member A abstains from voting against or contrary to the whip issued by the political party Y, and in case member A cast his vote contrary to the whip issued by the political party Y, so then also member A will be disqualified under the anti-defection law, right? So I hope you have understood this first provision of the anti-defection law, on which grounds a member of the state legislature or a member of a parliament can be disqualified, and this could be the first ground. The second ground for the disqualification under anti-defection law is that it also applicable for the independent members, and it also applicable for the nominated members as well. So we all knew that 12 members are being nominated by the president to the Rajya Sabha. and it will be applied for the nominated members and independent members also. So when we talk about the independent members, so they elect to the state legislature or to the parliament independently, right? So not with any political party symbol or not with any political party's support. And because of that particular reason, so the anti-defection law has also provided provisions for independent members. So any independent member after his or her election joins any particular political party, then the independent member will also be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So therefore, the anti-defection law provisions are also applicable for the independent members also. And similarly, nominated members can also be disqualified under the anti-defection law. How a nominated member can be disqualified from the anti-defection law? And in fact, so a nominated member can be disqualified if he joins any political party after 6 months of his nomination as a member of a state legislature or the parliament, right? So it clearly mentions that the nominated member joins any particular political party after the expiry of 6 months from the date on which he takes his seat in the house. The nominated member will also be disqualified from the disqualified for being a member of either state legislature or the parliament. However, so these are the provisions that we have just understood, the provisions of the anti-defection law. But why there is a need for anti-defection law? So that is important. That is what we need to look into. Why there is a need for the anti-defection law? Because anti-defection law plays a very important role in ensuring stability, right? So it actually ensures stability. Now, in fact, we have a multi-party system and we also have a parliamentary form of government. And because of the parliamentary form of government and multiple political parties, in India, what generally happening is that there is no political stability. No political stability is because, members of state legislature, members of the Lok Sabha or parliament in general, so they are just defecting to the other political parties, and that leads to the fall of the existing governments. So therefore, in order to arrest this trend of members making defections on their choice, so this anti-defection law has been passed through the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. However, the anti-defection law is also expected to ensure stability to the government by preventing shift of party allegiance, right? So they cannot easily shift their party allegiance, and therefore it discourages or disincentivizes shift of political parties by already elected members. So it is expected and anticipated that it ensures stability. So secondly, it also ensures faith as well, right? So when I say it increases the faith, generally what has been happening at the ground level, a member is being elected from one political party, a symbol of that particular political party, but later, because of his personal interest, he joins another political party, right? So this has resulted in declining trust, declining faith and goodwill of people on politics, on the democratic values or the democratic ethos. So therefore, this anti-defection law would ensure that there will be no defections and corruption is properly checked, horse trading is also properly checked. So therefore, anti-defection law ensures that candidates are elected with party support and on the basis of party manifestos, and they remain loyal to the party policies, and that would also ensure the political stability as well. And similarly, it also result in the discipline within these political parties. So how it ensures discipline in the political parties? Because anti-defection law promotes party discipline. So it plays a very, very important role in promoting party discipline, because every political party issues a whip, and in fact, members of that political party in the legislature must comply with the whip issued by respective political parties. And in fact, so they cannot abstain, contrary to the whip issued by the political party, and they cannot vote contrary to the whip issued by the political party. So therefore, the members of a particular political party must be complied with the whip issued by the respective political parties. And in fact, it also plays a very, very important role in further strengthening public trust, public confidence, and even goodwill on the elections, and also the democratic ethos and also the democratic values, because the anti-defection law aimed at preventing corruption, horse trading, and members shifting political parties solely based on their narrow personal interest. Now we'll understand what is the importance of anti-defection law in a democracy like India, right? So we have understood the need for anti-defection law, and we should also understand the importance of anti-defection law. And in fact, it was introduced to maintain rule of law. And rule of law is a concept that has been introduced in India during the colonial times by the colonial masters. And in fact, the anti-defection law has been brought in to maintain rule of law, and it reduces the political corruption, and it also reduces bribery as well, right? So not just corruption, so it also focuses on reducing horse trading and also bribery and even political corruption as well. So these are the major aspects that anti-defection law aimed to deal with, right? So it also focuses on reducing horse trading. Now when I say horse trading, the members easily switching the political parties to fulfill their narrow personal interests is also considered as horse trading. And anti-defection law has been brought in to curb, to prevent the power of money after election within the house, both state legislature as well as the Parliament of India. And in fact, horse trading and unstable government caused by money power and bribery, and they said to be rampant in the cross voting, right? So in fact, anti-defection law would also reduce the excessive use of money power as well, because it has succeeded in reducing the money power within the house, voting for passing legislation, and also survival of the government as well. So these are certain advantages of having an anti-defection law. We will also understand what are the issues within the anti-defection law. Now, anti-defection law is not foolproof, and it is not free from the issues. It has also been facing a lot of issues. So we'll try to understand what are the issues with the anti-defection law. It in fact affects the independence of member of parliament, right? So how it impacts the independence of member of parliament? Because member of parliament represents the constituency. Member of parliament represent the wishes and aspirations of the people, but not the political party or narrow political interests. So therefore, any member cannot voice concerns which may be contrary to the political party he is in, because as per the anti-defection law, no member who belong to that particular political party should say anything against the political party, because he would be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So it violates the freedom of speech, and they can't take any independent stand over any issue as well. So this is the first major concern with respect to the anti-defection law. And on this ground particularly, there is a lot of criticism as well. And in fact, it is also said that anti-defection law would be injustice to the constituencies from which these members are being elected, right? So because apart from being the members of a particular political party, so they are also elected by the people, and they need to represent wishes and aspirations of the people. So therefore, in fact, when they are not able to represent the aspirations of the people, the overall purpose of democracy would be deviated, right? So therefore it is said that being people's representatives, they should be allowed to boldly air their grievances and speak up for their constituencies' requirements. And apart from that, it also talks about accountability versus efficiency. So when we talk about accountability versus efficiency, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, so while he was drafting the constitution, he mostly favored a stability. So there should be a stability in the government. And in fact, he favored stability plus accountability over the efficiency. So this is what Ambedkar, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar favored over the efficiency. So thus adopting the parliamentary form of government. So thereby India has adopted the parliamentary form of government. So parliamentary form of government may not be efficient, but it would be more accountable. And apart from that, the anti-defection law would also limit the deliberations and debates and diverse viewpoints of the members in the legislature, and that is very, very important here. And in fact, there is a lot of criticism that when this anti-defection law has been brought in, the quality of deliberations, discussions, constructive criticism has been substantially reduced in the legislature. So this is another major problem. And in fact, the anti-defection law in the long run could generate a faulty legislation as well. Now I would like to tell you an example that Bharatiya Janata Party has introduced a bill in the parliament, right? So this particular political party, now it is also called as National Democratic Alliance. So it has introduced a bill in the parliament. So when it has introduced a bill in the parliament, it has a certain contentious provisions which may not be acceptable for an MP from one region of India. For example, eastern region of India. So an MP from the eastern region of India. So there are certain contentious provisions within the bill, and those provisions may not be acceptable for the people who are living in the eastern part of India. So now if MP opposes the bill in the house, so he will be disqualified under the anti-defection law, right? So he will be disqualified under anti-defection law. So what is the purpose of members are being elected and sent to the parliament if they are not able to fulfill, if they are not able to protect the wishes and aspirations of the people, right? So therefore this is the major criticism that has been leveled against the anti-defection law. And over a period of time, or in the long run, the anti-defection law would lead to faulty legislation, and those legislation would also have a lot of loopholes as well. And in fact, it could also pave way for delegated legislation, rendering parliament ineffective in the long run. So it would make parliament ineffective in the long run. And apart from that, the misuse of law by the speaker. Now, one thing that you need to understand here is that Speaker of the Lok Sabha is elected to the office of the speaker from the ruling party. So since he is elected from the ruling political party, very often it is being observed the functioning of the speaker is biased in favor of the government in power at the center. However, in India, there is a healthy convention that has been developed. Healthy convention. The convention is that, so whenever any member of the Lok Sabha, is elected as a speaker, he or she should resign from the membership of that particular political party, and they are also exempted from the anti-defection law. But here what has been happening, it is very rare that those who have elected to the office of the speaker, they generally don't resign for the membership of that particular political party. So in this context, we cannot say that the functioning of the speaker is impartial, and in fact it is non-biased. So there are instances where the speaker delivered his duties in a biased manner in favor of the government. So therefore misuse of the law by the speaker is also very often in news. And in fact, it is also criticized that the anti-defection law has been undermining the role of MPs and MLAs in the legislative or the deliberative bodies, because the legislators, MPs or MLAs, should act as agent of people, because they are the representatives of the people and they need to participate in important legislations and they need to protect the interests of the people. However, when they vote only on the party lines, of course, so it complies or it confirms with the narrow political interest rather than fulfilling the aspirations, wishes, or protecting the aspirations of the people from that particular constituency. So therefore it actually hinders the primary goals. So what are those primary goals? Agent of the people, he's the representative, he or she is the representative of people, and also they participate in important legislations as well. However, so number of loopholes have been emerging in this context. So what are the different loopholes that are being emerged here? So post Karnataka elections, MLAs were made to resign artificially to weaken to weaken the numerical strength, and bypolls were held to topple the government, right? So there are new loopholes even despite having the anti-defection law. Despite having this anti-defection law, so new loopholes are being emerged. Now I will tell you how new loopholes are being emerged here. Now imagine that there are two political parties, A and B. However, political party A has a majority, so it has the majority to form the government. It can form the government. However, political party B does not have the majority to form the government. Now in this context, political party could use money power. Political party B could use money power and it could attract some members from the political party A. So however, if members from political party A directly joins this particular political party, so they will be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So they will be disqualified under anti-defection law. Now generally what members from this particular political party have been doing, so they are resigning as a member of legislature, and they are also resigning as a member of this particular political party A, and again contesting elections on the party B ticket, right? So they again contesting on party B ticket. Now here what happened, party A loses the numerical strength to claim the majority to form the government. Now when they members of the political party A resigned and they again contested elections, so they have the better chances of winning elections, and next they are becoming ministers as well. So this is how new loopholes are emerging within the anti-defection law. And apart from that, some provisions within the anti-defection law are also criticized. For example, it has provided certain exceptions to anti-defection law, right? So it has actually provided certain exceptions. So what are the exceptions that it has provided? Again, there is we try to understand from another example, political party A and also political party B. So for example, political party A has 90 members, and within 90 members, if 30 members decided to join political party B, so they will be disqualified under the anti-defection law. So this is 1/3 of the members. So however, 2/3 of the members from political party A, so that is 60 members. If 2/3 of the members from political party A wanted to join the political party B, then it will not be considered as defection, rather it will be considered as merger of the political party A with political party B. So then subsequently they are exempted from the provisions of anti-defection law, right? So this is what it is said, that there is no barrier for wholesale defection of the members from one political party to another political party. And similarly, there are issues with the merger provisions that we have just understood now, right? So if 30 members from one particular political party wanted to join political party B, so they will be subjected to anti-defection, but 2/3 of the members decided to join the political party B, it will not be subjected to anti-defection law, right? So the proper reasons for exemption have not been mentioned. And now we'll understand impact of defection politics on Indian democracy. So how the defection politics will impact Indian democracy. So we'll try to understand this dimension as well. So it actually undermines the electoral democracy without a doubt. Whenever you see political corruption, horse trading, bribery, misuse of power, don't you think that it undermines electoral democracy and it undermines free and fair elections conducted by the Election Commission of India, right? So it also undermines trust and goodwill of the people on the democratic values or democratic ethos, and it also betrays the public mandate, because in earlier examples also we have understood that a member from one political party Y contested on the party symbol of Y, so he also win elections and later he switched to another political party. So therefore it is a clear betrayal of the public mandate by the candidate A. And in fact, we have discussed several times that it actually promotes corruption, political corruption, horse trading, bribery, misuse of power, and the members prioritizing their narrow personal interests over larger national interests, regional interests, or even the interests of the people that they are actually representing. So these are the problems. And apart from that, frequent defections would also promote immoral activities against constitutional and the democratic norms or behavior. Now in this context, what is the role of the governor that we have to understood? So in earlier classes we have understood that governor is part of the legislature, governor is the executive head of the state, and in fact governor also has a huge role. But in recent times, governor is appointed, we knew that governor is appointed by the union government, and governor is also acting as a mere agent of the center government. So because of that particular reason, in such matters, and tries in favor of the union government on such matters. So there are examples also. The example being Karnataka chief minister was not called to form the government. So even though post-election coalition was held the sufficient numbers. So their post-coalition numbers are sufficient, but even then also governor not called the leader of that particular coalition to form the government, right? So I hope you knew about that. You knew about this, how it actually happens. For example, imagine that NDA government is in power. Now NDA government is in power. Say for example in Karnataka, Congress is in power, right? So Congress is in power in Karnataka, and now so this happened while Congress was at the center also, right? So the very same thing happens while Congress was at the center and opposition political parties were having governments in these states also. Now for example, NDA government is in power at the center, and Congress is in power in the state of Karnataka. Now imagine that Governor is appointed by whom? Governor is appointed by the president. Governor is appointed by the president on the advice or on the recommendation of the prime minister or the council of ministers, right? So now imagine that a governor is appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister to the state of Karnataka. Now, governor in the state of Karnataka or any other state acting as a agent of the central government, agent of the center. So, fulfilling the wishes, aspirations of the central government or the political party which has been ruling at the center. Now, in these cases, generally what happens is that governor has situational discretion and also the constitutional discretion. So when I say situational discretion, certain powers, situational discretion, certain powers that governor enjoy. And for example, elections took place, state legislative assembly elections took place, and no party gets the clear majority, then it is up to the governor to ask the large political party with large numerical strength to form the government. So this is what is called as the situational discretion enjoyed by the governor. Now in this case, Karnataka ex-chief minister was not called to form the government, even though post-election coalition was held the sufficient numbers. So what should be the way forward in this anti-defection law? So that has to be understood here. So what should be the appropriate way forward? And in fact, the Supreme Court has time and again suggested that Parliament should set up an independent tribunal, and this independent tribunal should be headed by a retired judge of the higher judiciary to decide on defection cases swiftly and impartially. So in fact, in number of judgment, the Supreme Court has also held that the defection petitions must be disposed within the 3 months as well, right? So apart from that, there should be a proper timeline to be fixed for speakers to take decisions on the anti-defection law. Now I'll tell you, for example, there's a political party X, and from political party X, a member A has joined another political party Y, and here the political party Y is is in power, right? So this is the ruling party and this is the opposition political party, and speaker is from which political party? Speaker is from the ruling political party, right? So he is from the ruling political party. Now a disqualification petition under anti-defection law would be filed by the political party X with the governor to disqualify member A because he actually shifted from political party X to political party Y. So in fact, a shift of member A from political party X to political party Y actually benefits the political party Y by increasing its numerical strength in the house, right? So therefore it could actually claim for the formation of the government. However, here the problem is that speaker is from the ruling party. He is not acting on the anti-defection petition that has been filed with the speaker by the political party X. So taking this into cognizance, the Supreme Court time and again said that there should be a timeline, and that particular timeline to be fixed for speaker to take the decision. And in fact, decisions that have been made under the 10th schedule should be made by the president or governor on the advice of the Election Commission of India. So this is another recommendation, for example, National Commission to Review Working of the Constitution, and in fact Dinesh Goswami Committee. So all these different committees, Dinesh Goswami Committee on Electoral Reform, so all these different committees have recommended what? So they have recommended that decisions under the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution should be made by the president with respect to parliament and governor with respect to the state legislative assembly. But now the decision with respect to the disqualification of members under the 10th schedule would be taken by the speaker, right? So the power to disqualify members under the anti-defection law lies with the speaker. However, as of now, a number of committees have been recommending that this power should be transferred to the president at the central level and governors at the state level on the recommendations of the Election Commission of India. And in fact, changes like barring the defectors or legislators who resign from their seat should be, barred from contesting elections for a sufficient time. For example, imagine that a member from political party Y, so he changed his political party and he joined political party X. Now, under anti-defection law, this member will be disqualified. So after disqualification, seat will fall vacant and Election Commission of India again conduct by-elections to the vacant seat. So this disqualified member again contesting elections in the by-poll. So therefore, appropriate suggestion is that this member should be exempted from contesting elections. So he or she should not be allowed to contest elections for a certain period of time. So that would have a deterrent effect. On the members. And in fact, the role of money can also be curbed by revisiting the provisions of the electoral bond scheme as well. So in this context, what Dinesh Goswami committee has recommended with respect to the anti-defection law. So we'll try to understand, because Dinesh Goswami committee also made a certain recommendations with respect to defection. So disqualification should be limited to cases where member voluntarily gives up the membership of his political party, right? So for example, disqualification should not be extended. For example, as of now, the 10th schedule talks about disqualification even if member abstains from voting contrary to the whip issued by the political party, even if member cast his vote contrary to the whip issued by the political party. But Dinesh Goswami committee has been suggesting that the anti-defection law should be limited to cases where member is voluntarily gives up the membership to his political party, and then anti-defection law should be applied. But anti-defection law should not be applied in this particular case. And in fact, it clearly says that a member abstains from voting or votes contrary to the party whip in a motion of vote of confidence or motion of no confidence. And in fact, the issue of this is a very important recommendation by number of committees. And in fact, National Commission for Review Working of the Constitution has also recommended that the power to decide the anti-defection petitions should be transferred to the governor and the president on the recommendations of on the advice of the Election Commission of India, right? So these are some of the recommendations made by the suggestions made by the Dinesh Goswami committee. Now we'll try to understand very briefly role of the presiding officer, who is a speaker of the Lok Sabha, what role he or she is actually having, the constitutional provisions, issues, criticism and way forward as well. And in fact, Speaker of Lok Sabha or State Legislative Assembly, they are elected from amongst its members, and it is mentioned in Article 94. It is mentioned in Article 94 and Article 96 of the Indian Constitution, right? So it is clearly mentioned in Article 94 and Article 96 of the Indian Constitution about the office of the Speaker. And in fact, the office of the Speaker can be traced back to 1921, and in fact the institution of office of Speaker originated in 1921 under the provisions of the Government of India Act. So we have had the Government of India Act 1919. So it is also known as Montague and Chelmsford reforms. Under this, the office of the Speaker has been originated. Now, what are the functions, the major functions which are being performed by the presiding officer? So we'll try to understand the functions which are performed by the presiding officer. So presiding officer maintains order, maintains decorum in the house for conducting its business and also regulating its proceedings, right? So this is one of the most important duty that is being performed by the Speaker. And apart from that, he also maintains impartiality of the office, and he ensures ample time is given to parliamentarians, including the opposition political parties. And he also plays a very important role in ensuring opposition political parties hold the the government accountable. And in fact, he presides over the joint sitting of the parliament. So joint sitting of the parliament is constituted whenever there is a disagreement among both houses of the parliament. So then he actually presides the joint sitting of the parliament that is convened to resolve deadlocks between two houses. And he also adjourns the house and suspends the meeting in the absence of the quorum as well. And he also decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision on this matter is final. So these are some important functions performed by the Speaker. And apart from that, other important functions are also performed by the Speaker, such as he actually decides on the question of disqualification. For example, we have just discussed under 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, the power to decide on the disqualification of any member would be decided by the Speaker. However, it is not out of the ambit of judicial review. In fact, the disqualification of a person under anti-defection law is subjected to judicial review, and that has been held by the Supreme Court in the year 1992 in a case called Quijotto-Holohan case, right? So in a Quijotto-Holohan case, the Supreme Court has actually held this. And apart from that particular function, so he also appoints chairman of all parliamentary committees of Lok Sabha, and he also supervises the functioning of all these parliamentary committees. So he is the chairman of Business Advisory Committee, Rules Committee, and also the General Purposes Committee as well. And in fact, Speaker also fixed the agenda of the House, right? Speaker, in consultation with the other members of that particular business committee of the House and Prime Minister, so he also fixes the agenda of the meetings of the House. And in fact, he also interprets the rules and procedure of the House, and in fact the interpretation of rules made by the Speaker is final and they cannot be challenged in the court of law, and that is a provision that has been added to ensure separation of powers between the different branches of the government. So however, there are certain concerns with respect to presiding officer. Now, what are the concerns, what are the criticism with respect to the presiding officer? Now, it is said that inappropriate use of money bill provisions. Governor is very often inappropriately using the provisions of the money bill, and that is a key concern here. And in fact, what are the provisions with respect to money bill? So that we should have to understand here. Now, money bill, should be introduced in the should be introduced in the lower house. It should be introduced in the lower house with the previous recommendation of the president only, right? And apart from that, so if a question arises whether any bill is money bill or not, the decision of the Speaker is final and binding, right? So it cannot be challenged in the court of law. So therefore, apart from that, Rajya Sabha actually has limited powers with respect to money bills. So once money bill is introduced in the lower house, that is Lok Sabha, and once it is passed in the Lok Sabha, and then it will be transferred to the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha cannot reject the money bill. Rajya Sabha cannot make amendments to the money bill. However, Rajya Sabha can actually suggest amendments suggest, it can make recommendations to the money bill sent to it by Lok Sabha. However, if Rajya Sabha takes no decision on the money bill sent to it by the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill deemed to have been passed, right? So even if Rajya Sabha takes no decision on the bill passed to it by the Lok Sabha, then also the money bill would be considered passed by the Rajya Sabha, and then it would go to the president for his consent. So I hope you have understood. And here Rajya Sabha has a limited powers with respect to money bill, and because of that reason the government has been branding certain legislations as money bills so that it could actually bypass the Rajya Sabha. So if government don't have the majority, the numerical strength in Rajya Sabha, so it actually passes bills as money bills. It actually passes bills as money bills. And one recent example is the Aadhaar bill. Aadhaar bill. So that has been passed in the year 2016 as a money bill. And in fact, the Speaker's approval of the Aadhaar Bill 2016 as a money bill is one example of using the money bill route to bypass Rajya Sabha. And in fact, it is also argued that declaring a particular bill that includes larger issues such as privacy, data protection, and all other important issues should also involve Rajya Sabha, and it should not be passed through the money bill route, and there is a need for larger debate and discussion on this particular aspect. And in fact, failure to maintain decorum is also another major problem here, because the parliamentary logjam has been consistent seen on the floor of the parliament, whereby speakers have been unable to facilitate smooth functioning. And in fact, review of the speaker's decision. So under the rules of the house, speaker is not answerable to any person in the performance of his or her roles which are being assigned to him constitutionally. And in fact, impartiality is in question, because in a parliamentary democracy, office of speaker should be fair and impartial, but they are usually elected to the house on a political party's ticket, and they are also not resigning from the membership of the party even after being elected to the office of the speaker, and that is a major concern. Now in this context, it is very important to follow the models from different countries. For example, in Britain, the speaker is strictly a non-party man, right? Speaker of the house is a non-party man, so he don't belong to any particular political party, and that actually ensures impartial functioning or impartiality of the speaker. However, in India it is not the case. We just have the convention, but this convention is not very often followed. And in fact, our constitutional makers also envisaged integrity and impartiality from the office, but it has been progressively eclipsed by the political interests and made subservient to the needs of the ruling party. So these are the concerns or issues that we have been facing. Apart from that, recommendations of various committees with respect to role on presiding officer and anti-defection law. So we'll try to understand the recommendations made by committees like Dinesh Goswami Committee on Electoral Reforms 1990, Law Commission recommendations on the role of the presiding officer, and Election Commission, Constitution Review Commission. So we'll try to understand what suggestions they have made for improving the office of the speaker. And in fact, the Dinesh Goswami Committee on Electoral Reforms 1990, so it has held that the issue of disqualification actually decided by either president or governor, but it should not be given to the Speaker of the House, because Speaker of the House is from the ruling political party, and therefore there is a chance of biased or even the biased, or they might favor the ruling party. And in fact, Law Commission in its 170th report that has been published in the year 1919 also made similar recommendations. Political parties should limit the issuance of whips to instances only when the government is in danger. So political parties should not issue whips for any reason, for any bill. So it should be limited. So therefore, the anti-defection law would become more and more meaningful. Otherwise, the members of the members of the political party, the members of the legislature may not be able to protect the interests of the people from which they are belonging to, right? So in fact, Election Commission Constitution Review Commission 2002. So it has held that decisions under the 10th schedule should be made by the president or governor on the binding advice of the Election Commission. A similar recommendation like a Dinesh Goswami committee has been made. So what should be the best way forward in this context? As we have already discussed that in different countries there are best models. For example, in UK there's appointing a committee of 2 senior legislators. So there will be a committee of 2 senior legislators, and these 2 senior legislators will assist the speaker over deciding whether a particular bill is money bill or not. And that is very, very important. So that kind of a precedents have to be followed here, right? So in fact, in India, so whether any bill is money bill or not, speaker is the sole authority to decide that, and the decision of the speaker with respect to money bill cannot be challenged in the court of law as well. And in fact, in UK there is another healthy parliamentary convention has been developed. So in this healthy parliamentary convention, member of parliament who is elected as a speaker who actually resigns from the political party, and this actually lends more credence to his impartiality, and that is also a very important area. Now we'll understand the important aspect of parliamentary scrutiny. So what exactly is this parliamentary scrutiny and why it is important and why it has been emphasized in recent times, right? Parliament plays a very important role holding the executive accountable. So there are various mechanisms available with the parliament to hold the executive accountable. So therefore, the collective responsibility, the principle of collective responsibility of Council of Ministers to Lok Sabha would become more and more meaningful. And in fact, when I say parliamentary scrutiny, it is the close examination and investigation of the government policies, government actions, spending that is carried out by the lower or upper houses of parliament and their respective committees. And in fact, so various methods of parliamentary scrutiny of the government have been introduced. Now we'll understand the discussions and debates that actually revolve around this. So we have understood the essence of parliament and importance of the parliamentary scrutiny. So during discussions and debates on various bills, matters of public and national interest in parliament legislature could actually be pointed out. And in fact, there's another mechanism called question hour. So question hour is part of the parliamentary scrutiny. It also plays a very important role in holding the executive accountable for its actions. So during question hour, members can actually ask questions on every aspect of administration and the governmental activity. The ministers would actually give reply to the members for their questions. And similarly, there are number of committees within the parliament. For example, Public Accounts Committee, a very important committee. Estimates Committee is also another very important committee. And recently in news, Ethics Committee and Committee on Public Undertakings. So there are a wide variety of committees which are part of the parliament. And in fact, so there is a huge machinery of these committees in the parliament. So these committees also play a very important role in scrutinizing various bills which are introduced in the parliament. And in fact, after scrutinizing those bills, so they also actually suggest recommendations to those respective bills, right? So therefore it results in a better and more informed debate and deliberation on those legislations which have been introduced here. And in fact, a committee on estimates reviews the budgetary estimates of the regulators. And ad hoc committees, for example, Parliament may establish ad hoc committees which may examine working of regulators. So these are different committees. However, in recent times we could see that there is an ineffective parliamentary scrutiny. So we'll understand why there is ineffective parliamentary scrutiny in recent times. What are the reasons for ineffective parliamentary scrutiny? So we have seen disruptions, lack of decorum in the House. In 16th Lok Sabha, a question hour has been functioned in Lok Sabha for 77% of its scheduled time. However, in Rajya Sabha, the question hour has been functioned 47% of its scheduled time. So you can see the difference between both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And in fact, government is, or the Speaker of the House is also not referring bills to the parliamentary committees. This is also another major problem which has been resulting in the ineffective parliamentary scrutiny. So while 60% of the bills in the 14th Lok Sabha and 71% of the bills in the 15th Lok Sabha are vetted by the parliamentary committees, right, in the 14th Lok Sabha. However, this proportion of number of bills referred to the parliamentary committees for their scrutiny has been came down to 27%. And apart from that, there is no effective leader of opposition as well. So this is also another major issue that has been plaguing the parliamentary scrutiny of various bills and the ability of parliament to hold the executive accountable. Now we'll understand what is the importance of question hour in this context. So the first hour of every parliamentary sitting is considered or is reserved for the question hour, right? So in every session, the first day of that particular session is reserved for the question hour, and after question hour there will be 0 hour. And 0 hour is the time gap between the end of the question hour and also the time required for setting the agenda of the day, right? So therefore, during this particular time, members ask questions from the ministers, and ministers usually provide answers to those questions asked by the members. And question hour is very important because it ensures accountability, it also ensures transparency, right? So whenever members are asking questions, ministers are bound to give answers to those questions, right? So in a way, it enhances the accountability, it enhances the parliamentary control over the executive as well, right? So apart from that, it also helps government define their stand, right? So what stand that they actually taken on number of issues, right? So government can actually reveal their position on different issues, and members of the parliament can actually ask a wide variety of questions. And in fact, question hour is considered as a mechanism which holds executive accountable to the legislature. So what should be the way forward in this particular context? It is also important to understand the way forward as well. So as per the National Commission to Review Working of the Constitution, particularly it is with respect to the scrutiny of the bills introduced in the parliament by the parliamentary committees. So therefore, the National Commission to Review Working of the Constitution, so it has recommended that the departmentally related standing committees should be periodically examined so that committees which have outlasted their utility can be replaced with the fresh ones. Secondly, new parliamentary committees, right? A new parliamentary committees have to be constituted. As there is increasing complexity in matters of economy and technological progress, there is a need for setting up new parliamentary committees as well. And similarly, major reports of all committees should be discussed as well in Parliament, especially in cases where there is a disagreement between a committee and the government. So in that case also, the parliamentary committees play a very important role, and all committees reports which are being submitted should be discussed in the parliament, and committees should also play a very important role. And opposition should be proactive in asking questions to the government, and there should be a strong leadership from the opposition for constructively criticizing the government bills, government policies and programs. And there should be expert support that has to be provided to MPs, as an effective scrutiny depends on their skill and resources of the members. And in this context, we'll have a look at the mechanisms which actually hold the executive accountable to the parliament. So what are the mechanisms which actually hold the executive accountable to the parliament? Now first, we have already discussed question hour. So question hour, members ask questions and ministers usually give answers to those questions. And secondly, debates and motions, right? So no discussion on matter of general public importance can actually happens in the house. It only happens through a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. And in fact, the House communicates its decisions or views on various concerns through the adoption or rejection of motions which are moved by either ministers or the private members. And apart from that, we should also understand about the 0R as well. So when we talk about this 0R, it is considered as an informal device which is available to the members of parliament to raise matters without any prior notice. And in fact, parliamentary committees also scrutinize government policies, and they can also hold the government accountable as well. However, in recent times, we could see that there is erosion of parliamentary oversight. So we'll understand what are the reasons for the erosion of parliamentary oversight. For example, abolition of question hour, 0R during the monsoon session of the parliament. So this is one aspect. And passage of farm bills without much deliberations, discussions, despite protests by the opposition MPs. And in fact, the 16th Lok Sabha has witnessed 25% of the bills transferred to parliamentary committees. This is a very less number of bills referred to the parliamentary committees, and it is a fine drop from 71% under the 15th Lok Sabha. And important bills like Aadhaar Farm Bill were passed without being assigned to the parliamentary committees. And in fact, disturbance of the parliamentary proceedings have become the model which further erodes the parliamentary oversight, as it decreases the time for the discussion as well. Now in this context, how we can actually strengthen the parliamentary oversight, because that is also very important. So firstly, there is a need for the reform that could allow parliament to convene itself. Generally, it is the president or the council of ministers who actually convene the parliament, thus they adjust the time to suit their agenda. Secondly, strengthen the opposition. So India should adopt UK and USA model where opposition is allowed to decide the agenda of the parliament. So this was also recommended by the 13th All Whips conference. And apart from that, the question hour, Prime Minister is alone required to answer questions which are related to ministries allocated for him. However, UK, the PM answers all questions of the question hour related to the government policies. And examination of the reports. The National Commission to Review Working of the Constitution has actually recommended that all committee reports have to be discussed in the parliament. And increase transparency by adopting the best practices like video recording of committee meetings as seen in US and UK. So a greater public participation is also a very important aspect, especially departmentally related standing committees should be ensured. So all these measures have to be strictly followed. right? So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.